Welcome to another episode of the Puncher's Chance podcast. I'm John Lodge, coming to you as always from the Sports Lodge, joined by Jordan Grenke, coming to you from Castle Grenke. And Jordan, normally we'd have a little bit of pleasantries back and forth, but we've got too much shit to talk about on this episode. We have a massive pay-per-view card on Saturday afternoon, morning and afternoon, I should say. Some really good fights going on in the early prelims to prelims, and some excellent fights going on, obviously, on the main card. Everybody wants to talk about what's the most important thing right now, and that's that Khabib Gaethje fight, Jordan. What a fight we witnessed, and if that's the last time he's in the octagon, man, he put on a show, didn't he?
My friend, that was one of those things that we talk about a lot on the show, just honestly, just witnessing greatness. People are comparing that to some of the best sporting performances of all time. I'm not necessarily disagreeing. I have the worst case of recency bias that you've ever met in your life. It's one of the greatest things I've ever seen. It did not go at all how I expected, yet at the same time, it went exactly how I expected. But I mean, what an important moment. One of those, you sit back and you think to yourself, like, I'm going to remember where I was when that happened for sure.
Yeah, it was wild, and I was on the Gaethje train just like you. We were expecting a different performance out of the man, and it was just the same old for Nurmagomedov. He went in there with two broken toes and a broken bone in his foot.
Yeah.
First and foremost, let's just say that is insane. I can totally understand why this guy maybe missed weight a little bit if he was in and out of hospitals and suffering with broken bones and et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot going on in this guy's life, especially now that we have learned that his mother didn't even want him to fight this one.
Right. There's so much to take away from it, and there seems to be more and more coming out of it with every day, So what we heard Dana White said was that his team around him, apparently this does not include Javier Mendez, head coach of AKA where Khabib trains, and his head coach this fight. He kept that injury basically from a lot of people, only his really real inner circle. But when the fight played out the way it did, I guess some of his friends couldn't help but kind of said, "Oh yeah, Dana, like, oh well, just so this happened." And it just goes to show how tough the guy is, man. And we're looking at a once in a lifetime athlete. And when I said we're witnessing greatness, I meant it. He's been somebody who's had this slow progression over a few years, but he really is that special of an athlete. Every time we learn something more about the performance, it's basically that he shouldn't have won, and he shouldn't have even have been in there, really. So much, regardless of all the personal stuff with his father and his mother asking him not to fight, all of his teammates, he was helping them with all their camps. The fact that it was a terrible camp, broken feet, like it's crazy to know. We're looking back, hindsight's 2020, looking back on how great the fight was and how solid the performance was. Maybe his greatest performance that we've ever seen in the octagon. And yet still, there was so much working against him. It's just a testament to the man.
Yeah, it definitely is. And one thing I remember from the commentary on the fight, they were talking about how the leg kicks were working on Khabib, and maybe that had more to do with the broken bones in the foot than it did actually have to do with Justin Gaethje's strikes on his legs. I did notice that Gaethje did land a couple times to Khabib with the jab or cross, and that man lands bombs. So not only can Khabib throw and submit you, he can take a couple shots too. So we learned a lot about a guy who has gone 29-0.
I actually was thinking to myself, I went back and watched the fight, and kind of out of the moment sound off. I always like to watch it in the moment because I'm a fan, and then if I can, for the best of my ability, break it down. Those leg kicks were clean. Justin Gaethje wasn't lying. He was landing those kicks really, really clean. But maybe because there was a bit of urgency with Khabib, that's why you saw that kind of performance. Maybe if he had taken a few more of those leg kicks, we would have seen a different fight. But it also doesn't mean that the playbook has been written about Khabib, because he took them in stride. Like, he was trying to check them. He seemed like he was aware of them, right? And they mostly were happening when he was coming in. So they were very well timed from Justin Gaethje. But he wasn't wrong when Gaethje said in the press conference that a few more of those and Khabib and might even be having trouble walking right now. When I was watching the fight back in slow motion, he's 100% right, man. Those leg kicks were landing, but again, like we keep the, you throw another thing at me about the fight, Lodge, it'll just be another way that this fight was incredible. It's just an incredible thing, you know. In basketball, it's like Jordan's last minute threes, you know. In hockey, it's like Sidney Crosby's gold medal goal, you know. Like they're just these improbable, crazy things that happen in sports. It's the reason why we love sports so much. And yeah, I'm still buzzing. It's 2 days later, and I'm still 3 days later, and I'm still just like absolutely lit from the inside out.
So an interesting story that you enlightened me on before we started recording here, and something that we have to let the public in on. Not a lot of people allowed to watch the fights, as we know, due to the pandemic, but Justin's parents were there in the facility to watch. And well, why don't you enlighten the Puncher's Chance fans exactly why Khabib decided to submit as opposed to KO?
Well, you know, it's one, he's had lots of submissions. All of his fights end in submissions, but it's always a rear naked choke. This was a technical submission due to a triangle. And so what I've been reading and what's been alluded to was that Khabib wanted to show a little bit of mercy to Justin Gaethje because his parents were one of the few people in the audience. Daniel Cormier alluded to this, and subsequently a few other people have been speaking on the interwebs about it who were in his camp or a part of his training camp. And I guess it was also mentioned in sort of passerby. There was a thank you given between Gaethje and Khabib somewhere backstage, allegedly. And Khabib had shown Justin Gaethje a little bit of mercy in that sense, that it was his plan that if there was going to be a small audience, that he would look for the submission win versus his regular ground and pound. And there's also a mutual respect there between the two. They have the same manager. They've crossed paths many times. They kind of always knew they would cross paths, and it was really in that competitive spirit. Everything was civil all week, and yeah, I can't. And Lodge, every question, like how can you pick and choose how to win a fight? How crazy is that? I've decided that this great striker I'm going to take down, I'm going to submit him so his parents aren't subjected to any gruesome injury, or like, I know I can beat this guy so badly, I'm going to give him the easiest way out. I mean, getting put to sleep is not an easy way to go out, don't get me wrong, but I mean, just again, like a class act. He was always a hard guy to like for me. I guess I just like the bad guys so much, but I mean, all class the whole way. And I love hearing about that. You know, I love hearing that at the very end, and a fight that he knew was going to be his last, he wanted to go out in the most respectful of ways. And again, hats off to him.
Yeah, I get that. See, as a wrestling fan my whole life, I'm okay with the good guy, but I always want to see the bad guy come in
Oh,
at
yeah.
some point and land a couple shots, take you down a couple pegs so that you can get rebuilt and keep going on. And Khabib never needed to be rebuilt. He's that engine that kept on going. And you mentioned it, man. It's just insane. If you think Khabib took it easy on Gaethje or took mercy on Gaethje, if that's mercy,
That's mercy. Yeah.
man, I don't know. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that submission for a second. That triangle choke was just nasty. Came out of nowhere. No one was expecting that kind of move out of Khabib at all. And the referee missed the tap 3 times. 3 times. He didn't get it until Gaethje passed out.
Yeah, you know, I mean, Jason Herzog is a great referee. I don't know if he was caught up in the moment. Maybe he wasn't following along with the submit. The only thing I will give him, though, is that there was, like, people will try and create space, you know, push the guy's head back or whatever else. The first tap was kind of on his head. I mean, the other 2 or 3, there was clear as day. I think he just took the eye off the ball. I mean, he took his eye off the prize for a second. It was kind of an exciting moment, huge hype around the fight, but a referee's job is in there to protect the fighter. And, you know, a part of me is kind of like, I'm glad a guy like Gaethje could go out in a shield. I've never seen him tap before. But, you know, Jason Herzog, he just clearly missed it. I can't really paint it any better than that. He clearly missed a few taps there. But I mean, geez, the triangle choke, man. So let's back up for a second. So Gaethje starts landing his left hand, right? So now we're like, okay, but you know, Khabib's still pressing, still going forward, right? And he kind of half shoots for this takedown, but Gaethje like throws him aside. Like it looks like Khabib, and then I'm thinking to myself, the leg's done. Like if he's not shooting his shots properly, the leg's done, right? But then Gaethje lands another leg kick, but you could tell it got a reaction to Khabib, and I was like, oh my God, like this is where the pace is going to slow down, right? But then Khabib gets Gaethje down, hops into mount, and go and basically transition this slick, unbelievable, high level jiu-jitsu, right? Turns this thing, flips this, that basically an armbar attempt into a triangle choke, right? Lands it from mount, which is not a common position. We see a lot of people land those from the bottom. He slid the triangle attempt in from mount, right? The coolest example of this would be Cowboy Cerrone versus Cowboy Oliveira. It's something that you just do when you know, or you can pull off when you know the other person's not going to get you off of him. Like, it's kind of a bit of a flex, but just super confident in that move. It's something we never seen out of him. Yeah, Jason, again, Gaethje taps. Herzog doesn't see it. Eventually he goes out. Wow.
Yeah, I'm glad that there was no extra damage, and I'm not here to run and bash on the referee. It's just you got to bring it up. It's a topic that we have to discuss. It was just something that was a little strange to see. And Gaethje did look like he was in a little bit of danger there for a minute, but he wasn't in the choke for too long. So no extra damage to the man. So there no harm, no foul in this case.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that Jason Herzog will take this. He will look at that
Yeah.
footage and he will grow as a referee. He'll grow as an official. So,
And Herzog's the kind of guy where he's critical of himself, and he's vocal about his mistakes, and he's not somebody, you know, we saw the whole situation earlier this year with Dan Hardy and Herb Dean and that back and forth, and nobody really wanted to take accountability. Jason Herzog does not seem like that kind of person. We've seen him correct things in the past. We've seen him be vocal about things in the past. He's even gone as far as kind of like, when he's done interviews and people have asked him about things, he'll immediately watch his fights back. So he'll get better. I think it's a one-off.
All right. So we spoke about it a little bit earlier on. Khabib's mother had asked him to no longer fight without his father by his side. She did not even want him to take this fight, but out of respect for the UFC, out of respect for Justin, out of respect for Dana White, Khabib was going to do this fight. He did this fight, but now, and I kind of felt it as soon as they were cutting his gloves off, man.
Yeah.
It was you're like, oh, that's the oh shit moment. This guy's retiring. I didn't think it was going to happen that night, but it did happen. And he said that his family means everything to him. That's what he's always said. It's not about money. It's not about fame. It's about family. It's about values. And that's what Khabib has always been about. Is this the last time we truly see the eagle in the octagon?
I do think so. The one thing that it's kind of a bit of things. It's a personality thing, but it's also a cultural thing. You're looking at somebody who's very committed with their religion, with their community, with their country, and someone who doesn't normally, other than maybe saying he was going to go 30-0 and only went 29-0. That's about the first thing that Khabib said he was going to do and didn't. He was remarkably close with his father. You're talking about somebody who was a mentor, a head coach, and a father, almost like a best friend in a way. And if anyone who's watched Khabib grow and compete over the last, 8-9 years, you just understood that his dad meant everything to him, and by extension, so does his family. And he's put the sport first, right, for a long time, and he's kind of earned the right to do this. But I do think he'd be committed in this. I don't think you're going to see him compete in the octagon again necessarily. I think it would take. We were kind of talking about this before. I think it takes Conor being a champ and poking his finger in his chest a little bit, getting him riled up. It was an emotional moment, and it's not really fair to hold someone accountable for. It was visually emotional. It was one of the most interesting moments I've ever seen in the octagon was Khabib dropping to his knees after and succumbing to tears. But I do think that even in that moment, once he reflects on it, he can look back on his career and think that there's nothing else I could have done. He beat Conor, he beat Dustin. The only guy he didn't fight was Tony Ferguson, but he beat the guy that beat Tony. So I think it's it. I think you'll see him in the corner of a lot of people. I think you'll see him have the same impact as his father did, and for his country in Dagestan and the athletes that come out of there. I think he's someone to look up to in a small community. I think he is, going to be the leader of that team going forward and really set the bar high for what people can achieve coming out of his camp there. So I think his impact is going to be felt for a very, very long time, but I believe him when he says that he's done fighting.
Yeah, I too believe him. I think the only way he fights again is with his mother's blessing, obviously,
Yeah.
right? And that's not something that you go seeking unless it means a lot to you.
Right.
So save for a, GSP fight before GSP is completely done. And can I sidebar for a second? Did you see GSP on RDS?
Mhm.
Dude has hair, real hair.
I know.
I thought who knew that bald was a choice
I
for
know.
GSP.
Pulled
Like
it off.
that was I just sidebar that just astounded me when I was watching the GSP stuff
Yeah.
talking about Khabib. I was like, wow, I not plugs, not fake, all
Mhm.
natural GSP hair. He
Yep.
needs to keep that hair. He looks good with it.
Yeah. It looks younger somehow at
Yeah,
39.
yeah, he does. So save for a GSP fight down the road, and that can't be much more down the road for GSP, or a Conor McGregor is the champ for more than a little bit,
Yep.
right? A bit of a dominant champion who's had a couple defenses of the lightweight belt. Until something like that happens, and you give Khabib a reason, then yeah, I think he's done as well. I think that, like he said, it's not the last time we're ever going to see him at octagon side, maybe the last time in the octagon, but he'd make one hell of a coach, man. And
Yeah.
a lot of Dagestani fighters out there haven't had Khabib as a coach. Hazmat, I'm looking at you, and they're already great coming out of there. So I
Yeah.
can only imagine if he took all of that time that he was spending on honing his own craft and then became the knowledge tree for everybody else. Man, the level of fighters that are going to be able to come out of that gym, out of AKA, out of Dagestan,
Yeah.
wherever he might find himself, is just going to be astounding.
And honestly, I think he said it best. He kind of came out today on RT Sports and said that he doesn't know what else there is to do. I mean, Tony, the fight is tried to be scheduled fucking 6 times, right? Tony didn't look that great in his last fight, did an unnecessary weight cut, a few weeks before. I don't know. That's a weird thing. I don't want to get into that again. But, you know, he walked through the division. He beat RDA before RDA was a champion. You know what I mean? He beat Edson Barbosa. He beat Dustin Poirier. He beat Michael Johnson. He beat, you know, and all these people in their prime. Maybe RDA was before his prime, but I mean, Edson Barbosa was a killer. Michael Johnson was coming off a fight, I think, with Dustin Poirier where he beat him. All these, he beat people. He beat Connor. Mind you, Connor says he wasn't in great shape. No problem. He still beat Connor, finished Poirier. And these are big fights with people who are at the top of their class at the time. And I think when you look down the lightweight division, um, I'm not really going to get all that excited about him fighting Dan Hooker. I'm not really super pumped up with him fighting Charles Oliveira or Paul Felder, or he's already beat Ali Quinta. Kevin Lee, maybe other than Kevin Lee's wrestling credentials, maybe there'll be a little bit of interesting stuff there, right? Gregor Gillespie, when he first got into the division, I thought, oh, this is going to be a guy who, way better wrestler than Khabib, quicker, faster. Kevin Lee starched him with a head kick, and I mean, if Cowboy ever goes down to lightweight, I'm not really interested in seeing Cowboy versus Khabib either. So that next star that's on the horizon, they haven't arrived yet. So again, I think he just be a guy spinning his wheels. He's climbed Mount Everest. He stood at the top of it. He's one of the biggest fighters in the world, and I think his journey in the octagon is over. I just think he'll have a lasting impact on the sport, but the time he's going to spend in that octagon, I think, is come to an end.
That Aya Quinta fight, that went 5 rounds because Habib didn't respect him, right? Because when you look at the
Yeah.
difference between the Gaethje fight and how quick it ended to the Aya Quinta fight, and I mean, no disrespect to Al,
No, no,
but if
no.
you were to put Gaethje next to Al, then I think the water level is a little bit higher on Gaethje's side of the pool than it
For
would be
sure.
on Al's, right? So that's maybe not respect, but maybe that he didn't respect Al, but he
Yeah.
knew that he didn't have to finish this as quick as possible.
Well, I mean, when I love revisiting stuff like that, especially when it wasn't all that long ago. There's a lot of circumstances surrounding that. Like, you got to remember UFC 223. I'm gonna go with. Um, it was that insanity where, like, again, the Tony Habib fights off. Max Holloway steps in, is gonna go up in weight, right, to fight Habib. right? Kind of like champ and champ versus champ at that point. I remember being like, oh my God, Max Holloway, this is going to be amazing. Max Holloway's the man. And this is Max Holloway coming off a couple, like beating Anthony Pettis and, beating all these people. Like Max is on fire at this point, right? This isn't Max Volkanovski 1. This is like Max Holloway can't be beaten. And it was an amazing call, but he has weight cutting issues. He's, Khabib's on point. He wants to figure things out. Remember, this is when Connor also like threw the thing at the bus. Like it was a crazy part. Anyways, Iaquinta, Holloway's pulled, and Paul Felder offers to step in. Right, I think he was fighting Iaquinta. I think yes, he was. Right, so Paul Felder weighs in at 155 because he has a 156-pound limit. But if he wants to fight for the championship, he has to weigh in at 155. So he weighs in at 155, but then the New York State Athletic Commission doesn't consider it an actual title fight or declines his participation because he's not ranked. But the ranking system in the UFC, first of all, is a fucking joke. And it is subjective at best, right? Like literally Khabib asked to be put pound for pound, so they did it. Like there's no criteria for it whatsoever. But the New York State Athletic Commission looked at it and was like, whoa, Paul Felder's not even ranked. Even though he's fucking one of the toughest sons of bitches in that goddamn division, and who gives a shit, right? Iaquinta was ranked. I think he was like 11th. Like it was something crazy. Like it was way down in the rankings. But he was 0.2 pounds over the championship weight, right? So Iaquinta was not eligible for the title if he won, but I believe Dana White said that he would be considered the champion, and anyway, it was basically Khabib's belt to lose. But that whole thing happened, I think, about 3 days before the fight. So I think one of the reasons I went to that whole story to give you guys some context, but the reason why that fight went 5 rounds, 1, Khabib had been through some shit that week. 2, he game planned for not 1 but 2 different opponents, and 3, it was basically a sparring match, and no one goes into a sparring match with a set game plan and knows what to expect. And Iaquinta, with a strong wrestling background, fought the fight at a low stance almost the entire fight, and Khabib won that fight with a few takedowns and a jab. It wasn't the most exciting performance, but yeah. Jesus Christ, what a story that was. And hopefully I got half of that stuff right. I should have fact checked that before I went after it. But yeah, it was pretty wild, and I believe like yeah, and then Pettis was supposed to fight Chiesa, but Chiesa's eye was cut because Connor threw the trolley. So Chiesa's eye's cut. And then, but I think Pettis was supposed to fight Khabib at one point, I think.
Everyone's supposed to fight Khabib, apparently, at some point.
But yeah, the 156-pound limit is allowed for anyone fighting at lightweight, but not if you're fighting a championship, right? But Pettis was put in there, but he couldn't make that extra weight cut. And then Chiesa was pulled. Pettis couldn't make it, so they brought in Holloway. Holloway gets pulled because he can't cut weight. Iaquinta is like the fucking last guy at the table. I'm just happy to be here. Gets the title shot, but won't get the title if he wins because he's 0.2 pounds over. Jesus Christ. Anyways, there you go.
That all left a bad taste in my mouth, though, when it happened. Just simply because in my mind, and it may or may not have been the case, but in my mind, having someone fight against a man who is not eligible to win the title is just handing the belt to the other guy. And I don't like that. I would, as much as you don't want to pull the fight off the card, I would much rather you pull the damn fight off the card and give me something I want to see. Now, to Iaquinta's benefit, he did what he could, and he stood in there with that man for 5 rounds. And
on 3 days' notice.
On 3 days' notice. So I don't know if he would do better or worse with a full camp, with having Khabib work on his style for a whole camp. But good on him for doing that. You spoke about the pound-for-pound rankings and how Khabib asked very so nicely and politely, as Khabib does, to be ranked number 1 pound-for-pound fighter. And as of today, you have checked, and the UFC has obliged his request and has made him the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in UFC to date. Unfortunately, a man by the name of Jon Jones has a little bit of an issue with that. And I am sick and tired of having to say this, but I agree with Jon Jones.
It's almost getting annoyingly redundant how much we keep on saying that we are agreeing with Jon Jones lately. But I genuinely hope that he stays on this path. I would like to see Jon Jones kind of find himself in a better place now, whether it's this hybrid of heel versus not heel, I don't know. But I like when Jon Jones is just telling it how it is and not trying to pretend that he's going to give an answer that we all think we're going to like, or he's not trying to win over fans. I think it's better for him when he just comes out and flat out rips people. And again, Lodge, I've been saying for years, man, Jon Jones as the villain, I think he would have been huge. And we talked about Floyd Mayweather turning heel around the De La Hoya time, or I mean, we always shoot the shit about wrestling, like how many wrestlers really broke into like the mainstream and can really, can only be a few, John Cena's who was like, forever the good guy until everyone hates him, then he leaves, then he comes back and is a hero again. Like that gets old, right? But the guys that turn heel for a while and then they redeem themselves and like, you know what I mean? Like that's the kind of, I love that stuff. Like I really like that stuff. And Jon Jones should just turn heel and he'll have some cool performances and we'll all hate it, but we'll tune in to watch. And, there'll be like a David Goliath moment where like he wins and, we'll have like one of those rough fights and, he pulls it out somehow and we're like, hey. But anyways, Jon Jones just comes out and tears this whole conversation, a new asshole basically. And everything he said, unfortunately for everyone else listening, he's fucking right. Like, he's right. He's defended the belt way more times. He's been champion for way longer. He was way more active, right? He's got a few blemishes on there. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to go down as the greatest of all time, right? That spot belongs to Georges St. Pierre. But yeah, I mean, if we're talking pound for pound fighter, the guy has fought a couple heavyweights that came down. Daniel Cormier changed weight classes to try and beat him and didn't beat him twice. You know what I mean? Like, and he's faced some, Gus fights at heavyweight now. Apparently he used to throw around Andrei Arlovsky and now it's Alistair Overeem in the gym. Like, pound for pound, no one's done what he's done. No one's had the light heavyweight streak as long as he's had him. No one's finished the people that had the fights that he's had. He beat Machida in his prime, Rampage in his prime, Rashad Evans in his prime. He fought a juiced up Vitor Belfort that was literally had – like his pecs were in his nose, man. Like his lats were bigger than his shoulders. He was juiced to the gills. Still submitted him. He's had wars. Yeah, Gustafsson twice in his prime. Like I can go on. He beat Glover Teixeira in his prime. He's an absolute machine. And everything he said was right. He just threw out facts, and people hate him for it because he's taking away from Khabib's moment. But I think he's defending his position, and I even agree with him when he's like, "You're taking my hard work away from me." Because the one thing that I will say about Jon Jones is that he can fight. He's got great performances. He's a world beater, and he's been doing it for longer.
Yeah, 100%. You can't agree, or you can't disagree, sorry, with Jon Jones' line of facts in this situation. He's just been the better fighter for longer. You failed to mention Anthony Rumble Johnson. I do believe he went through him as well. And
he did
that's
not.
a man. Oh, okay.
The only guy he hasn't fought. He was scheduled to fight him twice.
That's right. That's why he was in my brain as a guy Bones had competed against. But even still, he would go up against anybody at any time. And not saying that Khabib threw up the roadblocks for anyone except for the guy named Conor McGregor. So obviously, there is a little bit of discrepancy there. I'm with Jones on this one, and he is turning into the good guy, which is okay in my books. And you want to talk about a wrestler that he emulates? Let's call him Stone Cold Steve Austin of the UFC world, because Stone Cold never gets old, right?
No.
Pound for pound rankings, I don't.
It's a nice nod to Khabib. It's nice, like his accomplishments are acknowledged. He's brought an entire, part of the world into the sport. He's absolutely massive in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. And I think it in a way, it's kind of like his wish, his departing wish. It kind of ties over. Maybe it was one of his father's dying wishes. And there's nothing wrong with tipping the hat, but
It's one thing when it is given to you. It's another thing when you ask for it. I'm sorry, it just doesn't
It's
mean
true.
as much. Personally, to me, I don't view him as the pound for pound best fighter. One, you're retired.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're talking best fighter, that's already George St. Pierre. That's
Mhm.
George St. Pierre, hands down, and it will be until someone is greater than him. So the pound for pound rankings don't matter anything to me if you're not an active fighter. You have retired, you've walked away. Why are you the pound for pound best fighter if some guy can't walk up to you and say, let's go?
See, pound for pound for me has always been one of those things, and I agree with you, John, that you can, it's the fight anyone at any weight class or as many weight classes as possible. And the pound for pound thing obviously started in boxing when you had people who, like Floyd, like Manny, like James Toney, like Roy Jones, who could fight in all these different weight classes and sometimes even defend their belts going up and down in weight. That's where the pound for pound thing started, really. But then it turned into like, who's the best fighter pound for pound? And but if you look at the pound for pound rankings in the UFC, it's basically just a list of all the champions, right? It's in order: Khabib, pretty lightweight champion, the last lightweight champion because we don't have a new one yet. Jones, Izzy, Stipe, Usman, Volkanovski, and then you get into the non champions, right? Poirier, Holloway, Jan, Gaethje, Connor, Robert Whittaker, Tony Ferguson, and then unfortunately Davison Figueiredo, who just recently became a champion, right? Has only had a few performances, and then Ngannou right at the bottom. How many of these guys have fought in multiple weight classes? Dustin Poirier, Max Holloway,
I got a problem with that
Connor.
list. I got a problem with that list, Jordan.
Sure you do. Everyone does.
Cejudo. Khabib
Doesn't
is
fight.
retired. Habib's
I know.
retired. He's
That's
number
what I'm
one.
saying, man.
Why is
That's what I'm
Cejudo
saying.
not on the list?
Yeah. How come listen, why isn't Cormier still on the list? He won titles in 2 weight classes, you know? But it's when you talk about the greatest of all time list, to me that's subjective. I think this men's pound for pound and the women's pound for pound, I don't know why the women's pound for pound, now that I'm looking at it, is 15 people long. It should only be 4 at max.
One person long.
Well, Valentina Shevchenko has had very close fights with Amanda Nunes, and Weili Zhang is tested. So I'll give you 3, and I love Rose Namajunas, so you have to give me 4. Holly Holmes fought in 2 different weight classes and been a champion in one of them. Again, there's someone who could be pound for pound one of the better fighters. But I just think it's a cash grab. I think it's a cool stat. You know, it's like what's the stat in baseball that I think is useful? Slugging percentage. Like that was a thing for years. Like, and I never. You could even tell me right now what slugging percentage is. I don't even care what it is.
I think it's the percentage with the power off the bat. It's really convoluted. Yeah,
QB passing rating. QB pass rating. I could give a fuck.
Yeah, there's a lot of stats in sports that have been created by mathematics aficionados out there who just want to break down
slugging
exactly
percentage,
how an athlete performs.
Yeah, who cares about, you know, again, maybe the QB rating thing, but I don't even know how it works. And when they give me that stat, I'm like, it's never affected my fantasy league. It never will. When someone says they complete 70% of their passes, I'm like, that I can get my head around. But yeah, QB percentage and QB passer rating, absolutely not. Don't give me that shit.
Don't tell that to Tom Brady, because that was a stat he hung his hat on for many, many years.
Anyways, yeah, man, you know, I'm with you, man. Jon Jones at the top of that list and this is the other thing I think, John, once you're at the top of that list, someone's got to take you off it. Unless you retire, someone takes you off that list. And no one has taken Jon Jones out. I would like to, if you don't mind, I would like to take a minute here and go through the people that you'll recognize on Jon Jones' absolutely monstrous career, right? And tell me how it compares to Khabib's. Right? We'll start with his UFC career. Beat Stephan Bonner. Pretty famous, pretty decent fighter at the time, you know, was kind of punching above his weight class. Beat a guy named Jake O'Brien, who was on his way up there as well. Then the Matt Hamill thing happened. He's dominating Matt Hamill, hits a 12-6 elbow. Steve Mazzagatti disqualifies him. Worst thing to ever happen in the octagon. Then he beats former 40 light heavyweight and heavyweight fighter Brandon Vera. He beats Vladimir the Janitor Matyashenko. Then he beats Ryan Bader, Shogun, Rampage, Machida, Rashad Evans, a juiced up Vitor Belfort, Sonnen, which I forgot about in the first round, Alexander Gustafsson, Glover Teixeira, Daniel Cormier, OSP on short notice, beats Daniel Cormier again, beats Gus again, then fights Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos, and Dominic Reyes, where he wins 2 of those fights by unanimous decision. That's insane. It's insane. And so if I go all the way back down, starting at Shogun, which I was there that fight, March 19th, 2011 in Newark, New Jersey, no one has beat him for coming on 10 years.
Yeah.
That's it. As a champion, you did that. Habib's defended the belt 4 times.
Oh, I was going to say Habib's whole UFC career has been 10 years or less than.
Yeah, maybe.
So
yeah.
There's no way you can be included in that, or well, you could be included in it, but you can't be the number one in that ranking as you had requested without actually, like, truly, does Khabib believe he is the best fighter in the world? Because sure. If he truly believes he's the best fighter in the world, then I don't even know where to go with that, because then you're delusional. You're definitely delusional. I'm not saying I want to see Jon Jones versus Khabib. We're not talking we're going down that road. But when you put your resume up versus another guy, and then you go ahead and just say that yours is better when it is obviously not, how can you say that you're the greatest fighter?
You know, can I just say one thing? And I don't know, I'm gonna throw this out there because I haven't heard this on any MMA thing yet. Holy Christ, this is so crazy. His first recorded lightweight debut professional fight, he won by triangle choke, which means that he also bookended his career. His first win was a triangle choke, and his last was a triangle choke. That's pretty goddamn cool. But regardless, you don't know, other than Rafael dos Anjos, which happened in 2014, you don't really recognize any of his opponents until you get to maybe Michael Johnson, when he was already 24-0. So he's 29-0, and then Jon Jones is, and we're just going to go ahead and call that loss a win, he's 27-0. Except Jon Jones has had more championship fights and then almost he's had fights in the UFC. That's crazy. So I think, listen, if you want to play a numbers game, that's the only number you need to hear right there, man. You've got Khabib has got, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 13 fights in the UFC. Mm-hmm. Jon Jones has had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 title fights. There's your stat right there, dude. Khabib hasn't even fought in the UFC for as many fights as Jon Jones has had title fights.
Yeah, and those are defenses, right? Basically.
I counted the Machida win, and remember, the Machida wins short notice. Rashad Evans pulls up. My ticket stub for that fight still says Evans versus Shogun. Evans gets hurt. Jones beats Bader. In the ring, they give him the title shot. And then 5 weeks later, he fights Shogun. Yeah, okay. And I was there.
I gotta admit, man, it's something I haven't quite experienced yet, because the cost was always too high for me to want to sit where I wanted to sit, and so yeah.
I'll tell you a secret, man. If you want to go to a cheap UFC fight, go to the fucking one in New Jersey.
That would require me going to the United States of America, and that's a problem right now.
Oh my God, I was terrified. It was Uriah Faber's debut, and I knew Jones was going to win. I knew it was going to be kind of a historic night. Turns out I was right. But man, I'm telling you, the nosebleeds that I got for the first UFC fight in Toronto, the nosebleeds were twice as much as the price for the Barclays Center, and I was row 100. I had better seats than some of the fighters. Crazy.
You imagine?
In Montreal, our floor seats were $1,500 each. And that was before Connor. That was GSP fighting Koscheck in Montreal. Oh my God, man. It's crazy.
What a fight that was.
The atmosphere, man. And I literally open up the pay-per-view. They scan over the crowd, and there's me with a suit on, so it was all, young and with money, and I'm showing my Nunavut driver's license like this, like going.
Came all the way from Nunavut.
Yeah, because I flew down there from the fight, and I literally opened the pay-per-view. It's one of my proudest moments.
Well, there you go. Now you said you've opened the UFC pay-per-view.
It should be the opening screen for the show. It's this like graphic that comes along and me pointing at the Look at what 12 years old. Anyways,
There
man.
are a couple other huge fights on the card, though, Jordan, that we do have to get into.
Oh,
We had Bobby Knuckles taking on Jared Cannonier,
how
and
good did Robert Whittaker look, man?
he looked real good until about 2 minutes left in the third round there. That was some scary final 2 minutes for Robert Whittaker. As much as he was BSing in the post-fight press conference about how he wasn't hurt, he was hurt. He was hurt. You knew it because he automatically scrambled and tried to successfully pin Jared to the cage for the remainder of the fight. But definitely held his own in the first two rounds, even through the first bit of round number 3. He touched up Jared a lot. His leg, he said he knew he was going for it. He hurt his foot or something when he checked the kick early in round 1, so he just decided to eat those kicks, I'm guessing, and save his feet. But the key takeaway I have is from the post-fight press conference. For those of you who didn't get to see it, go watch it. It's hilarious. He's awesome. But when he was asked about what's next for him, what the future is, he sounded a little bit hesitant when talking about fighting Izzy again.
You know, I know Robert Whittaker is a really, really nice guy, and I know he has an amazing sense of humor. Again, watch his post-fight press conference. He's all laughs, he's all smiles, but I feel like that was a missed opportunity. I feel like it's when you go back and say, I wasn't myself in that fight. I can't wait to get my shot at him. He was, really apprehensive, almost seemed like he didn't want to fight Izzy, and that's a mental edge. And the last thing you want to give Israel Adesanya is a mental advantage.
Yeah, it was weird for me to see because, like I've said, watching Robert Whittaker, he's a bullish guy. He's honest and he's funny. He's a nice guy, but he's not someone you would ever see shy down from a fight. And he said, "Man, he's a hard guy to fight, and I'm not really excited to face him again." And so I guess the question I'm asking is will he fight Izzy, or will he choose to just not fight for the title?
I don't know everyone in the world wants to see Izzy and Jones. I mean, that's the fight to make. I'm going to stand by that. I don't see, I don't care about Izzy versus Jan Blachowicz yet. I don't care about him seeing Izzy fight anyone else. I want to see him fight Jones. I don't want that fight to happen now. And I think that, they got to figure that shit out, because that's the fight to make. It would be on par with one of the biggest fights ever. I think it would probably pull bigger numbers than we just saw and last weekend. And last weekend was a massive fight. I say that because, I'll watch Israel Adesanya fight anybody. Like, he's that good. And after coming off that Costa performance, I want to watch him fight again sooner than later. Am I excited for that Robert Whittaker rematch? In a way, yeah. Robert Whittaker is so goddamn good. But then when I see Robert Whittaker, not just Jones in for that, revenge, I want that one back. It wasn't myself, I almost wanted him to turn into Conor and go, oh, well, I barely trained and, I was burnt out. We've heard him say some of that stuff, but, Conor convinced me in those interviews leading up to the Cowboy Cerrone fight that, and with almost explicit detail, he'd be partying all night and roll into the gym. And you kind of see Conor doing that shit. I think Bobby Knuckles missed an opportunity, and I don't think we're going to get to see that fight now. I don't know who Izzy fights. Izzy's had this problem now where he doesn't fight the next guy because the next guy either isn't ready, he's injured, or he got to take the next best thing. But he fought Romero when Romero didn't deserve it. Is he going to fight Jared Cannonier coming off a loss? No. His only option is Robert Whittaker. Jack Hermanson's fighting Darren Till. Yoel Romero, I have no idea what's going on. He's probably going to fight Derek Brunson next, even though they've already fought, and I'm pretty sure it was one of Yoel Romero's best finishes. Edmund Shabatsian is way down. He lost his last fight. You got Anderson Silva versus Uriah Hall coming up this weekend. Give me another name at middleweight that isn't Khamzat Chimaev, but he's booked. There's nothing exciting for Izzy right now. So I don't know what you do with him. You don't rematch him against Costa. You don't put him against a Cannonier who lost. Hermanson's, isn't exactly skyrocketing or pulling great numbers. Maybe Whittaker's the only option, but even Whittaker doesn't want the goddamn fight. Make him fight Jones.
Yeah, well, that's the fight that you seem to want so badly that you really just scream it from the rooftops. But
Wake my kids up. That's how excited I want it, man. That what would you do, John, if you woke up tomorrow and it said Israel Adesanya versus Jon Jones, just a fucking catch weight, just a one-off, you know?
I'd buy the pay-per-view the second I
Oh
see
my
it.
God, I would be like, how do I get to Fight Island? I don't even know where it is, but like I have to go. It'd be nuts, man. But yeah.
As I stumble over my thoughts and my words, you brought up Chimaev, and Chimaev is going to face Leon Edwards, right? If I'm getting that correct. And it is a huge fight that was made just this previous week. But if Chimaev makes his way through Edwards, okay, and then do we start talking about Robert Whittaker versus Chimaev, and then Chimaev versus Izzy?
Oh yeah, you 100% do. I think that's exactly, John Lodge, you are a fucking genius. That is exactly what would happen. Robert Whittaker is going to need some time, and he's got pretty banged up in that fight. If you want to talk about the fight, Bobby Knuckles looked amazing. Had a great game plan, was in and out, elusive. Cannonier was behind a step the entire time, but man, did he have like just, John Wayne true grit, like just was not going to give up, has the heart. That's a championship mentality right there. Unfortunately, he was outclassed, but we're going to see lots more of Jared Cannonier. And I got some news for you that's not announced and not going to be, but you watch when they make Jared Cannonier versus Paulo Costa and how pumped we're going to be for that fight, because they're both coming off losses. That's the next move for them. But yeah, man, if we see Chimaev just dispose of Leon Edwards at 170 and then turn around and say, hey, Bobby Knuckles, I want you in February, or fuck, I want you on the Connor card, or I want you, something, you know what I mean?
Well, I know that that Whittaker has said that he's not looking for a fight till March. So
he's earned it, man. He's come back. He's fought twice, 2 big fights, co-headlining, and that 5-round fight with Till was amazing. And he's got his head on straight. And you don't want to burn him out, man. This is like the best Robert Whittaker we've ever seen. This is. I want to see more of this. So he fights in March. Yeah, I say give him Chimaev at 185. If Chimaev hasn't already fought 6 times by that.
Fought 6 times and won 6 times. You have to add that caveat.
You want to talk about that fight?
Well, I mean, I was gonna jump into the heavyweight fight, but we can
go ahead. Do it.
The Volkov and oh my lord, I could
Walt the Big Ticket Harris.
I knew it started with a last or an H. His last name started with an H. Walt Harris, the guy that you were on for the win, and Volkov, he decided to show you a little bit what for. 2nd round KO to Mr. Harris. And to Volkov, I guess the only question I have here is did Volkov make the statement he was looking to make to the heavyweight division with that fight?
I don't think Volkov was looking to make a statement. He's a guy that just normally piles on wins and puts himself in good positions. Coming off that Curtis Blades fight, where he started having some success later on in the fight, right? I don't know if he needed a statement win, but he needed to have a good performance. But man, did he look sharp. But I gotta say, I was, everyone's disappointed when they make a prediction and they don't get it, right? Or you bet some money on a guy like Walt Harris, and you want the best for him. But I don't know, man. I don't know what that game plan was going in there. I keep thinking, like, I've got a lot of questions about that. He's part of SBG Alabama, right? So Straight Blast Gym, similar to the Connor guys, but and Spartan Fitness. That's his camp over there. I don't understand that game plan. They weren't using angles, they weren't circling, they were almost circling into Volkov's like power areas, his power kick, especially his power punches. And I don't know, they didn't seem like they were mixing in takedowns well. He just looked kind of frozen, like a deer in headlights. And I got some questions about that game plan. Again, I'm no pro, but it just seemed like it was odd. I thought he had a great game plan for Alistair Overeem, right? In and out, power shots, and I thought the moment was with him there. But Volkov is a sharp striker. He picks his shots. He's very patient. He uses his length pretty well. And that sternum kick was that's going to hurt anybody, especially with the leg 3/4 or if not 85% extended, and hits you right in that little bump. My wife had to tell me the name of it, and then I sent it to you, and now I forget it. But yeah, Volkov, I think, just keeps himself relevant, man. I think you're going to see Volkov over him now, and, we're going to see what happens.
Yeah, Overeem definitely deserves that fight. Just talking about that kick, watching it over and over again, it almost felt like he poked his lung with his toes.
Honestly,
Knocked all
yeah.
the wind right out of his lungs. He knew instantly that he was in trouble. Backed off. Good on the ref to get in there as quick as he did. Volkov did land a couple of other shots, but man, that sternum kick was just nasty, and not the only nasty TKO KO that we saw on that card. We actually had a pretty memorable card.
Yeah.
Just looking at from the early prelims to the Khabib Gaethje fight, you had 9 of 12 finished, and
I
most of
know.
those finished in the first or second round.
It was just a crazy display. Again, mixed martial arts, absolute excellence. You're talking about an armbar stoppage, right? With the very first weight, albeit a catch weight, but there was some and obviously we know the circumstances around that now. You had a doctor stoppage in the second fight after Miranda Maverick, my new female favorite fighter, just destroys. I can't pronounce the last name.
Jojua.
Yeah, Liana Jajua's nose. Right, then you get this weird split decision, which was a great fight. What ends up being a split decision. Then guillotine, KO, sub, KO, TKO. Whittaker went the distance, and then Khabib finished off Gaethje. Man, the afternoon just flew by. And listen, I think we're all the better for it.
Yeah, none of the fights really dragged on. You had fun. It moved. The pacing was great on it. That Maverick forearm to Jojua's nose. If she took one more shot, her nose was going to fall off.
It was a great stoppage. It was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
That girl's too tough for her own good.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you saw the photos after, right? That thing was just that was a mess. Looked like a boxer's eye that just got knocked out. Like after it was ugly. And I love that Kenny Nathaniel Wood fight, just constant action. It's just a great night. I'm looking down the list right now, and the Phil Haas knockout. You know what I mean? They just destroyed the guy 18 seconds in the first round.
Yeah, it was nasty,
crazy.
I believe that was the first fight on the main card, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
I missed that fight. You sent me the clip of it on.
Oh no, that was the Magomed Ankalaev versus Ion Cutelaba. That was the first fight. Yeah, this was one of those rare 6-fight main cards. I think probably because it was in the afternoon as well. But yeah, they came out swinging the first time, questionable referee stoppage, and then this time they went patient, boom, fight done. So it was good.
You mentioned the split draw, and we've talked about draws off air. We've talked about draws on the show before, and it used to be something that was super, super rare. You'd see one a year, maybe, depending on how many fights you were watching, depending on how many leagues you were watching, you could see a few.
Yeah.
But they're becoming more and more regular in the UFC, and to me, I don't know if that's because the talent level is become like the parity in the UFC is raising, or if we're just seeing better judging now.
There's no way I'm agreeing with you in the latter part of it. I'm gonna go with the former. I'm hoping it's because talent is stopping out. The judging, I think it could be a combination of both at the same time there, buddy. I think you might have talent that's evening things out at the same time where fights are ending in draws because the judges don't know how to judge them. This is one of the ones where I think they got the draw right because I feel like, the fight was back and forth. People had their moments, but I think, I remember there was a time where there was years you went without. I remember from probably 2000 and I don't know, 2, 3 to 2007, you didn't really have one. You never really see fights that ended a draw. And then but I was definitely there's more fighters as well, right? So there's all these different analytical or the statistical points where you can see this stuff happen, but it definitely feels like it's happening more often. Like I remember BJ Penn and John Fitch had a, Antonio Silva and Mark Hunt famously had a draw, but I can't, I know there's probably more of them. I know Woodley and Thompson were a draw. But yeah, there's definitely more now, but there's also more fighters. It's like me saying, you never ever heard the causation versus, I don't know, correlation argument?
I'm sure I have at some point, but I can't draw a
So people say that
connection.
wherever there's shark attacks, there's also ice cream, and there must be some sort of correlation there, right? Or it could be the fact that it's fucking summer, right?
Okay, I was just like, what?
All
Ice
right,
cream?
where is this guy going? I
Ice
think
cream
that
and sharks?
yeah, you've got more fights more frequently, and you've got more fighters. But I will say that you made a good point about the talent pool. The talent is evening itself out. You don't see many blowouts anymore. You see the matchmaking's gotten better. I think all these variables together create a scenario where we're seeing more fights and we're seeing better fighters more frequently. So, we're just getting more draws.
Okay, so how about this idea? We get rid of the draw completely, and if it's a draw, we go to sudden death. It's a horrible name for a.
I was gonna say, like, what are we talking about here?
It's a horrible name for a round of like blood sport. But
I know what you mean. They
yeah,
do it in the Ultimate Fighter. In the Ultimate Fighter, they do 2-round fights, and if you each win a round, they go to a sudden death. Whoever wins, which is basically just a judge's decision, anyways. But I guess you could do something like that. I know it's likely a commission thing where if you've signed up for a 3-round fight, you shouldn't be asked to do anymore. I know with the Ultimate Fighter, you sign up for 3 rounds, but you only have to fight 2 of them. I don't know how they've gotten around that with the commission, but it's likely a Nevada thing. But I think if you sign up to have a 3-round fight, they can't make you fight anymore, likely contractually, likely through the commission. It might be a lot of red tape. Unfortunately, just one of those things. It's like regular season after 1 overtime football games. They shouldn't end either.
no, they definitely shouldn't. They need to adopt the college football rule for that.
Absolutely.
But the problem with the contract, that's just contract work, right?
Yeah.
So if you decide to, as the UFC, we're going to sign you all to 4-round fights,
Mm-hmm.
but the 4th round is only initiated in the event of a draw,
Right.
then you have your problem figured out, in my opinion. Now, I understand we're
Yeah.
asking for people who are putting their bodies on the line to do it for an extra round, but there would be extra money involved, et cetera, et cetera. There's a reason that championship rounds are 5 rounds. There's a reason.
All main events actually now with the UFC, all main events are 5 rounds.
Yeah, so there's a reason why we're seeing that, because we want to see these fights go longer. We want to see a result, and the longer you go, the more likely it is you will see a finish, a submission, a knockout, a referee stoppage, a doctor stoppage, or in the end case, someone wins that final sudden death round. I'm all for more sports all the time. And I think that the NHL got rid of the tie.
Yep.
Why can't the UFC?
I think you'd have to start with the commission. I think if the commission would sign off on it, I think the contracts would be easy. You can't make someone do something that the commission won't allow. Commission's there primarily for safety and also to take your money. But the commission's there for safety. That's their whole mandate. If you can get the commission to sign off on it to get rid of draws, I think you'd have a point there. I think what you got to work with the commission on right now, though, is fixing judging. And I don't care what they do, as long as they fix these judges. Some of these fights, it's not getting better. And it's not one of those things where it's got to get worse before it gets better. It's just getting worse. So
the NHL, to help with their officiating, they started hiring ex-players and training ex-players. Why do we not have former fighters as judges?
The commissions. The only former fighter I know is Ricardo Almeida, who used to fight at Mark Henry's gym. He was a former welterweight in the UFC, great jiu-jitsu practitioner. He has become a judge since. John McCarthy was an active, not UFC fighter, but he trained jiu-jitsu before anyone did. He wrote the rule book, and Herb Dean has had a semi-professional, if not professional, kickboxing fight. So a lot of these guys have to have a certain amount of martial arts training just to be a referee. So, but Ricardo Almeida right now is the only former fighter who has decided to become a referee. And I think part of it was because he lost some questionable decisions in his fights, I imagine. But I'd love to see it, man. I love to see, somebody brought up once that a referee should be judges. And that what you should do is have, like, if you have a stable of referees that are reffing the fights, they know what to look for. So why not bring in a fourth or fifth or whatever the number is? Let's say you have 4 referees per fight card, right? Bring in a fifth, pay him the same to be a judge, but you can't pay judges. You can't pay judges if you're the commission can pay the judges, but there must be like a pay thing somewhere, right? Anyways, there's got to be a solution, whether someone does it or not. But the other big thing is, they're not exactly MMA judges. That isn't a thing yet. We go by the scoring rule of boxing, like the same scoring setup as boxing. Again, I don't agree with that. I think there should be a different point system. I think we should score the fights differently, but this is what we're set up with. And there's probably somebody behind the scenes making changes or looking to make changes happen. We just have not seen it yet. And we're likely years, if not a decade away from any structured long-term change.
That's it. I'm going to go study to be a judge, and
do it, man. That'd be great.
I'm gonna go fix the entire UFC from inside.
Well, you see, I've seen boxing judges on a Tuesday night premiere boxing on NBC, and then that weekend they're judging UFC. Like, I've seen it happen, and then you have boxing judges like Julie Letterman, who's her scorecard with the Lomachenko Lopez fight is highly questionable right now. So I'm not saying that even getting more experienced boxing judges is any better. You need someone who knows the value of a takedown, knows the value of anything else, submission defense. If you go for a submission, it looks like you're going to choke the guy, but the defense sometimes is harder than the actual choke, right? So when it's difficult. Or if you hold off a guy like Damian Maia and he's not choking you out, why can't I get points for that? I'm nullifying this guy's defense just like I'm blocking a punch. You can watch a couple of the Joe Rogan fight companions where they go into a deep dive about the problems of judging, or any real fighter interview that talks about it, man. It's the fighters are the ones getting burned. They're playing by the rules, but there definitely needs to be improvement. I'm not saying overhaul the whole entire thing necessarily, because we're so used to it now. And that's the other catch-22. The longer we go with this, longer we will be less, accepting of change. So it's a clusterfuck, man.
Figure skating and hockey are both on ice, but I don't ask a referee to go judge figure skating.
That's
okay,
right. That's true.
Just because they are similar does not mean they are the same. I'm not going to have a basketball referee come and ref a hockey game. Yeah. I'm not going to have an umpire go try and ref a basketball game, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. There are different nuances to different sports. Just because it's a combat sport does not mean that you can judge both equally, equivalently. Yeah. I believe that you need specific judges for MMA and specific judges for boxing. Hell, specific judges for kickboxing. I think there might be a little bit of a leeway there with boxing judges and kickboxing judges, because there's some more similarity there. But you definitely do need a stable of judges just specifically for mixed martial arts. It just doesn't make sense to be running off of an archaic boxing structure that doesn't even account for takedowns. It counts for knockdowns. I
agree with you. Or how many punches equal a takedown? Ask Daniel Cormier, is it easier to punch someone in the face or do a high crotch, toss? It takes way more effort, way more skill level, way more training, and I think you'll see an evolution one day. But I just think that, especially now with it, we're on ESPN now, the sport's bigger than ever. Now you got casual fans that are used to the 10-9. I'm sure boxing likes it because it's kind of like you can score one and score the other. And I don't know, man. I'd like to see some changes. I know it sounds like the fighters would too, but we'll see, man. See what the future holds.
Yeah. We all have to wait together to see what the future holds. Definitely something that is worth anticipating, as well as a change in the rankings is the upcoming lightweight bout between Conor McGregor and Dustin the Diamond Poirier. And it's a fight. It is a fight that now has a lot more implications on top of it. Khabib left the lightweight division champion list with his retirement. The belt just floating there vacant, and Dana White, Papa Dana, was asked the question at the post-fight press conference. Did not seem to like it too much. His answer was not. Do not ask me about the future, because he knew what the answer was going to be. but we're not Dana White, we're not the UFC, and we love to speculate. So let's speculate, Jordan. Will the Conor McGregor-Dustin Poirier fight now be for the vacant lightweight championship?
Yes. The answer is yes. I don't know how they're doing this. I don't know. I half expected, Lodge, us recording late Tuesday night, we were going to hear something today. Notoriously, they fly back from Abu Dhabi on the Sunday night, and they spend the Monday, getting turned around, and then Tuesday they go into the war room, and they start hammering out these fights. It's super odd that we have not heard the official Conor Poirier announcement. The buzz has kind of come and gone a little bit, but I think this changes everything. And I think what's going to happen now is you are going to see that they're going to announce this let's look at it from a business standpoint. Conor McGregor fight is huge. A Conor McGregor fight for a title is even bigger. Conor even getting the belt is a big deal. Do the UFC even want Conor to be the champion? I'll tell you, you're going to have to give that guy 2 or 3 fights a year and not keep him on the shelf to just being a healthy, active guy once a year, right? This might be great for Conor's career, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's not what he wants. Maybe it's nowhere close to what the UFC has. And the UFC is like, absolutely not. We don't want the guy as our champion. We just want him to be like a really good prize fighter. I don't know. I could not tell you what's going to happen. I think that when that fight gets announced, and it should get announced, but I'm telling you, if we don't hear about that fight by the end of the week, I don't know if we're going to hear about it. Because if you can get somebody like Leon Edwards off your rankings, then fighting Khamzat Chimaev within 24 hours, you can't get Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, who both openly said, yes, let's do that. Yes, let's agree on a date. Kick them to sign the fucking contract. You're not going to see it, man. It's going to be more bullshit.
I don't know if my bullshit meter is going off on full blast yet. I want to see the fight. I don't know whether or not the UFC want to see Conor McGregor as their champion, but the dollar signs are in Dana White's eyes anytime Conor McGregor enters the room. I understand how much he probably dislikes the way Conor holds himself, but I don't see any other move you can make. You've mentioned it to me before. Gaethje's coming off of a loss. You can't put him in another title fight. Both Poirier and McGregor are coming off of wins. It just makes sense if the belt is vacant that they need to be the ones fighting for it. And if you say that this makes the number one contender, even this Conor McGregor Poirier fight, then who are they going to fight that's more worthy than one or the other? It really doesn't make any sense. You have to make this a title fight. And I love all of it. I'd love to see Conor as the champion. I'd love to see him parading around with that belt, and it will bring a smile to my not Irish heart, as you can tell by my very dark hair, to see the mouthpiece back on top of the UFC. Have you seen the pictures circulating of Conor?
Yeah.
He
looks
scary.
swole.
He is scary looking, man.
Yeah, he's put on good size. He might be a full-time 170 pounder from all. I guess, you know what? I'm a big proponent of this 165 division, and I don't see why not. You're doing it for the ladies. You're doing 150, 125, 135, 145. You're doing 155, then you jump to 170, and then from 170 you jump to 185, and from 185 you jump to 205, then from 205 to 265. You're basically jumping 8 weight classes. You know what I mean? So one more weight class wouldn't kill anybody. And guys like Kevin Lee, Khabib, GSP, Conor, they all have perfect frames for that. Nate Diaz even would be, and Jorge Masvidal would be perfect 165ers. But they don't seem too keen on it. And, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But when I look through the lightweight division, man, it thins out pretty quickly. Khabib is considered the champion right now, right? Because there's no one else taking over the belt. Number 1 was Justin Gaethje. Well, he just lost. He's not fighting anytime soon. And he lost pretty convincingly in the second round, right? Poirier's coming off a win against Dan Hooker. Conor's coming off a 170 win against Cowboy Cerrone, but he's fucking Conor, so who gives a shit, right? The other guys you're looking at are Tony coming off a loss, Dan Hooker coming off a loss. With Charles Oliveira, well, I think Charles Oliveira is pretty much due for maybe Justin Gaethje or Dan Hooker. But if I like the idea of the whole tournament idea. I don't like tournament. They kind of rub me the wrong way sometimes. And the UFC's never done one. It's kind of Bellator's thing, and it was Strikeforce's thing when Strikeforce was a thing. So I don't know if we're going to see a whole other, lightweight tournament. Like keep reading these articles. Like, there's not a fucking chance it's going to be a lightweight tournament. They did it for the inaugural flyweight just to kind of give you some kind of buzz around a brand new division. But lightweight's been established since before BJ Penn, during BJ Penn, and long after BJ Penn. So, there's no need to reintroduce people to an already, people say it's the most difficult division, like the most competitive division. I just say you match them up properly. Khabib's out, Gaethje, no question. The only two guys coming off wins here are Conor and Poirier, people that you're going to actually care about being in the championship, right? I don't really want to watch Kevin Lee fight, Paul Felder for the belt. Doesn't really do it much for me, and they're down in the rankings. So it's the only thing to me that makes sense. You could maybe make an argument for Poirier fighting Gaethje again, because it was a good close fight that Gaethje was kind of winning until he wasn't, kind of thing. Maybe for the vacant championship, because Gaethje's going to ride the popularity and take off the shine that he just got from Khabib. That's awful, shine from Khabib. But I think Conor's the star. Poirier's coming off a win. People are already amped about that fight. You're just giving it a little extra sizzle, and it makes the most sense. The two really popular guys. It's a rematch. Who's developed the most, who's progressed the most, and to me, it just makes the most sense.
So, and I'm new to the tournament style sort of thing. For fighting,
they don't fight in the same night. I get asked that all the time. Yeah.
Well, no, I was going to say there's no way they can fight in the same night, but there's also no way either Dustin Poirier or Conor McGregor at this rate are going to be fighting.
Michael Chandler. Sorry. Michael Chandler's in there now. Sorry.
He's just freshly in there. I was going to bring up Michael Chandler, but before we get off the tournament idea here, there's no way either of those guys are going to fight on a fight night. So do we see a possible situation where you have Poirier semifinal, McGregor semifinal, buys, they're there, and then everybody else makes their way up to them?
No, the only way the tournament works is I'll remember all these guys have wrestling backgrounds, or at least know a lot about wrestling. This is like collegiate wrestling, not professional wrestling, and they'll literally line it up like pro wrestling, like King of the Ring. Like they'll literally have them in a bracket, and then the graphics you see are this like lightweight thing that happens, and basically it happens over two fight cards. So you have basically two huge it'd only be brackets of 8, right? So you'd have 4 guys fight one night, a month later 4 more guys fight, and then the winners all fight each other, and then one day down the road the last 2 people fight. But with the Michael Chandler thing, I forgot about that, and it's silly of me because I like Michael Chandler a lot. I could argue maybe you do Poirier versus Chandler for the vacant belt. Maybe you do have Conor fight Gaethje. Like there's some options there. Michael Chandler makes that thing interesting. Even if Michael Chandler fights Ferguson, right? You got Dan Hooker fighting Justin Gaethje, both coming off losses, and then maybe you do Conor versus Poirier. But I think that Tony's kind of earned himself another fight, right? Does Tony fight Poirier? Then Conor fight Chandler? I don't know. Like, they're gonna have to work that stuff out, and it sounds like it might even be like a coin toss. But I think no matter, it makes the most sense. You have 2 UFC guys fight for the vacant lightweight belt, and then you have Michael Chandler come in. I think you get him to fight Tony Ferguson. Winner of that fight fights for the title. That's my final answer. I think Poirier, McGregor for the title, might as well, and then Chandler Ferguson winner. It's the next crack. That's it.
See, I was thinking
Sean Shelby.
Well, I was thinking maybe you do Gaethje and I'm forgetting his Chandler, Gaethje Chandler, and then you have Poirier McGregor, and then the winner of those 2 fights fight for the vacant belt.
You could. I think I was looking at everyone. I know the UFC has unless they're really desperate, they have a pattern and a history of doing winners versus winners, losers versus losers. It's just kind of one of those things, unless it's a last minute thing. So I'm looking at the fact that Dan Hooker is coming off of a loss to Dustin Poirier. But Dan Hooker's done this cool thing where he started his own podcast, done a lot of funny social media, made some appearances. He's kind of like become more popular since his loss, which is kind of crazy, which was a fucking awesome fight. So maybe that's why. But I think he's coming off of a loss. He's number 5. Justin Gaethje's number 1 right now, but now that he's lost, he'll probably drop down to number 4-ish. Right? Sometimes people drop a couple seeds. Dan Hooker and Justin Gaethje both coming off losses. Charles Oliveira, I think, could fight Paul Felder. right? Or I don't know where Charles Oliveira fits into that whole thing. But anyways, Poirier coming off a win against Dan Hooker. McGregor coming off of his win is starching of Cowboy Cerrone. Even Ferguson's coming off a loss, but Michael Chandler's never fought in the UFC. I don't think he's earned a fight with Conor. I think you're going to have to give that rematch to Poirier, who's earned it, or even give that match, that money fight to Ferguson, because for sure shit, he's earned it too. So I just don't see Michael Chandler getting dropped in a huge marquee fight for the title.
It's interesting because he was the fill-in for the Khabib fight, and so you
That's
think that
different.
the UFC.
That's different.
Well, I was just gonna say, you think that UFC does have a lot of weight invested in this guy. They know what they have.
Unintended.
Pun very much intended, because
A lot of weight.
Chandler had decided to make a little bit of a quip in his interview to.
I liked that.
It was weight. I had to make weight and everything. So
yeah.
That was interesting.
You know what? I like that though, and Michael Chandler again. That he's a consummate professional, and if you haven't seen Michael Chandler fight, he is the last thing he is boring. He's one of the most exciting fighters that you have out there. Period. Let alone the weight division. He's super athletic, incredible wrestling, lightning fast hands, knockout power. Really a special guy. Really special guy. But he has this amazing way that when he promotes fights, he has a way of just turning the knife in enough, not too much, but he gets it in there, and very wry, very like witty. And when he made the comment about, I had to make weight and everything, it like, I didn't even pick up on it. You had to point it out to me. And I remember being like, oh damn, that is a little bit of a sleight of hand. But it's Michael Chandler's great, man. He doesn't get into a firefight. People can bring it out of him, but he'll tell you what's what.
Yeah, he definitely seems like a guy who's rearing to go to get inside that octagon and start making his impact in the UFC. Whether that's for the lightweight title down the road, that's for Dana White to decide. But I sure as heck love some fresh blood in the UFC. So if we can see a new face who can dominate, or well, he's not a new face to MMA, but a new face to UFC who can dominate, then I'm all for it. All for what Hazmat has been doing in the UFC. And before we get out of here, I know you want to talk about Hazmat Leon Edwards, so let's give it a little bit of love. This is a fight that nobody saw coming, but Hazmat gets his wish, and he's going to get to fight a pretty big name.
Can we just first of all give respect where respect is due here? And like, poor fucking Leon Edwards. You know what I mean? Like, this guy went from he beats Rafael dos Anjos in an unbelievably convincing fashion. We all, and I mean everybody, was like, he gets the next title shot. He was the obvious, no questions about it, number one contender, right? I don't know what happens with them not announcing it. Oh, no, Usman's hurt, right? So Usman's hurt for a little bit. So then we end up getting Gilbert Burns versus Tyron Woodley, and Gilbert Burns is like, oh my god, he looks incredible. He'd already fought, Damian Maia and beat him, and then he was just kind of on this roll. Then he gets his title shot, and then that fight doesn't happen, and fucking Jorge Masvidal steps in, right? And then Colby Covington wins his next fight, and poor Leon Edwards can't get stateside for a fight, isn't going to Fight Island. Right. And we just don't know what's happening. But Leon Edwards still hasn't lost. He's beaten Cowboy Cerrone. He's beaten RDA. They put people in front of him. Like, he's lost to Usman, but it was a pretty goddamn close fight. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm thinking he's going to get someone big. I'm thinking Leon Edwards is fighting Covington next. Like, that's, to me, makes the most sense, right? Or give him Gilbert Burns, but Gilbert Burns is going to get the next title shot against Usman because he was promised it after he beat Woodley, and which is pretty much because Leon Edwards wasn't fighting fucking Tyron Woodley. Like, the whole thing is a crazy mess, and I just genuinely feel bad for the guy. I do, because he just deserves a title shot. But instead, he can't get a fight except for he gets a fight with fucking Hazmat Chimaev. And not only that, it's happening in December. So it's happening this goddamn year. And you're like, you probably got the worst fight for you. It is a lose-lose situation. If you lose to Hazmat Chimaev, Khamzat Chimaev, and again, I fucking called this, so I'm happy about this. He's going to leapfrog an entire division. And you want to watch the names? Go back to last week when I said this is what would happen if he got this fight, and he got the fight, right? He's going to leapfrog an entire division and take the number 3 spot. There'd be only people that Khamzat Chimaev could fight after would be Colby Covington or for the goddamn title. It's an unprecedented step. I love that Leon Edwards said yes. It's gonna be the biggest fight he has to date, yet somehow he's ranked 22 places in front of the guy. Anyways, I could go on and on forever. I won't, but it's incredible for both fighters. It's an amazing opportunity, and if Leon Edwards can shut the door on the hype train, there's no denying he gets the next title shot. Then you'd have to take it out of his dead hands.
Does this not stink a little bit of the UFC maybe forcing the hand? We talked about how they took Edwards off the rankings as a way to maybe push him into signing this deal, and then out of nowhere he calls out Khamzat. So obviously this is something that they had offered, and they're looking for a guy who can maybe stop Khamzat, but not really stop him. They want someone who will offer a little bit of resistance that they have not yet found in the UFC, or that he has not yet found in the UFC to date. Does this not smell a little bit to you?
It reeks, to be honest. I hate seeing that pulled from the rankings thing. I think it's a power play move. It's definitely heavy-handed. There's no way to get around it. It's a bit of a dick move. I hate that. They did to Nate Diaz before too. It rubs me the wrong way. It's a negotiation tactic. I'm just not a fan of it. What I am a fan of, though, is if I add it to the drama of, imagine Dana White, well, it's probably not Dana White, but it's someone, probably Hunter or Sean Shelby, calls up Leon Edwards and goes, I got you a fight. And Leon Edwards is like, holy fuck, thank God. Where? Can't tell you where because we don't know because of COVID. Okay, but I am fighting. Yeah, we're going to get you out of the country and it won't be any problem. We talk to the government. You're going to be good to go. Here's the contract. And you get the contract that just fucking says Khamzat Chimaev. And you're like, wait a fucking second. Like, am I being used as a stepping stone here? You know, what kind, maybe then you start asking for more money. I don't know what happened, but there was something that didn't sit well with the UFC that made Dana White go fucking pull him from the rankings. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know if they were able to flex contractually or what it was, but it was a big deal when it happened. And the next thing you know, it's almost like you almost forgot Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards is still under contract. He's also fighting Khamzat Chimaev. And to be honest, this is the biggest fight Leon Edwards could get. I think that this fight will do better than you would see a Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington do. I think this fight will do better than if you had seen Leon Edwards fight Gilbert Burns. I think this fight will do better than if you saw Leon Edwards fight for the fucking title. So I think this is actually, when you look at the dollars and cents, this whole thing, I think you pay Leon Edwards' money, you gave him the best possible slot. Every important MMA enthusiast, pundit, and other fighter will be watching this fight, and you have an opportunity to shut the door on the biggest UFC hype train we have seen since Ronda Rousey or Conor McGregor.
Yeah, it's definitely been the I was going to say the biggest shooting star that we've seen since McGregor. It's a guy that has not faced any sort of stiff competition inside the octagon. And you brought up these other guys that Edwards could have fought, but even winning the title doesn't give you as much of a shine as if you're the guy who stopped Khamzat Chimaev from becoming the next Khabib Nurmagomedov or becoming the next Jon Jones.
The thing it would have to be the next Jon Jones. The thing is, as much as Khabib has done amazing things in the octagon, and all the praise to him we gave him earlier, there's few people that come through here that end up looking like world beaters. And even Conor was flashy and he was knocking people out and he was arrogant and he was funny and the media loved him. But when Jon Jones arrived, he was starching people. Like, we had never seen a Jon Jones before. We are seeing that with Khamzat Chimaev. We saw that eventually with Conor parlaying. He hurt his knee, beat Diego Brandao. Calls out Dustin Poirier, gets the Poirier fight, starches him, beats Mendez, but I mean, it was kind of grittier for Conor. Chimaev is looking like Jon Jones did. When Jon Jones came in here, man, it was scary. People were getting fucked up. Like, I remember he broke Brandon Vera's orbital bone with an elbow, and it looked like it was the most painful thing ever. Gets Vladimir Matyashenko in a crucifix, which is Jon Jones is like 3 feet tall than he is. Starches Ryan Bader, absolutely beats the bollocks off of Shogun. Like, and everyone just going like, what is happening here, right? Like, no one knows that the hype train is crazy. We are seeing that now, except Jon Jones's was gradual. You know, Stephen Bonner, Jake O'Brien, guys a little bit harder, a little bit tougher. Okay, cool. Okay, some guys used to be the champion, and the newer guy. We're seeing Chimaev go from guy that I don't know to the other guy that, what's his name? No idea, to the guy that, he fought a couple times, no idea what his name is either, to Leon Edwards. He's skipping a whole division. Chimaev is not ranked. If this was the New York State Athletic Commission, they wouldn't sanction the fight because he's not ranked, man. It's crazy. You've never seen this before. And if this happens, even if he loses, he'll be top 10. But if he wins, he is the number 1 contender in like 6 months. It's crazy, man.
I was going to say it'll be a tale that is not hasn't been told very often. We just told the tale of Jon Jones, and it'll be interesting to see maybe a passing of the torch. Not that Jon is ready to pass anything at this point, but into the future, it'll be interesting to see if Khamzat Chimaev can continue his path and be the next Jon Jones. Maybe he seems to have a mouth as well. So these guys who are just so good, who are so talented, and have not met stiff competition that can shut their mouths, have a tendency to run them. Izzy's one of them as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Khamzat Chimaev in the future of the UFC. But that's all we got for this week's episode of The Puncher's Chance. I hope we didn't go down too many paths or didn't stray down too many paths. I hope everybody enjoyed everything we had to say. And of course, you had to have enjoyed UFC 254. We will be back next week. Looking forward to the next pay-per-view and everything that is ahead for the UFC heading into the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021. Thanks everyone for listening. You can find me at John Lodge Media or John Lodge Music, on Twitter, and Jordan at Radio Supernova X on Twitter as well. Make sure to hit us up, like, subscribe, follow. Let us know what you want to hear, what you want us to be talking about, and what you want to see, and we'll try and incorporate it into the show as much as possible. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Peace.